Hello, friends. We're going to get started. Thanks for hanging around. The basic idea for why we wanted to call this is the wardens had been, and the vestry had been really putting a lot of effort into communicating and being transparent about where we are on a number of things, financially, mission-wise, and facilities-wise. And it had been a while since there had been a meeting like this to check in and update you on some things. And also, I'll just be quite frank about it. Next Sunday is End Gathering Sunday, where we're asking you to make a pledge. And we wanted to make sure that no confusion or uncertainty about where we're heading and what we're doing is going to impede you from making the pledge that you need to make. So that's really why we timed it for today and why today is important. But it's not going to be long. We have important information, but not huge amounts of information. So thanks for staying for the time that you're here. Hopefully everyone has gotten an agenda. If you don't have an agenda, ushers are at the door and the back. You can get one. Maybe raise your hand if you need one, and they can come around to you. Okay, we're good. Susan's going to give us a financial update. Jim's going to give us a building update, and I'm going to give you an update on the visioning process and the family ministries programs. So, carry it away, Susan.
Hi, everyone. So the very first topic is we're titled Funds Released for Dan's Salary. Many of you may be wondering how we've been able to afford a priest given our financial communications this year. So I wanted to let you know that this past summer, the vestry approved use of faith and action funds that were previously allocated to the gathering place for Father Dan's 18-month priest in charge contract. You should also know how we're doing from a budget perspective. We continue to trend in the right direction as a result of a number of efforts. Staff's work on savings in terms of current expenses, and we've done a bunch of other things. We wanted to let you know at the end of September, our actual operating deficit is $57,000 without any transfer in of monies. So let me just put it in context with you. Last year, our budget was $160,000, not including transfer in of monies. So we've done a substantial improvement, and we're really trending completely in the right direction. And you should know that in churches, they tend to run on deficit budgets. So we will have, the next statement I said is a financial summary statement. So one of the things that you guys receive in your work environments is some kind of dashboard or a snapshot that can any one point in time direct you to all the important financial things to look at. You know, it's operating income, it's expenses, and it's a quick overall summary. The Finance Committee is working to create our own version so that you know where we sit financially. We're going to share an iteration with the vestry in the upcoming months, and we plan to implement this for full use in the start of 2024. So we want you to know we will be handing that. That seems to be a lingering issue and a question with people, you know, where are we, how do we stand? And we want to make sure we report it in a way that everybody can understand. Third topic, faith and action funds. A few Sundays ago, we responded to questions they had on the food ministry, and yes, we continue to use faith and action funds to match the donations. Through the end of September, we have sent $9,100 to the local food pantries that we support, which are Vernon Township and Deerfield. The pumpkin proceeds go to 3 pantries, those 2 plus Highland Park. So that was 3A. 3B, Better Together Migrant Ministry. Thanks to all who have contributed to this important ministry. Our current involvement with this ministry is winding down as our friends at Trinity work to assist their tenants to move into their next housing situation, and then there'll be an assessment of future efforts, so more to come on that. And then the last item, which has 3 sections, budgeting process, stewardship campaign, and line of credit debt. So first of all, thanks incredibly to Pastor Dan for his leadership in creating the theme for our stewardship campaign. He got it done in like 7 to 10 days. Phenomenal. And many thanks to our 3 speakers who, is he making faces? Who have shared their experience in our community and why they pledge. We really appreciate those witness statements. Be sure to join us next week as our in-gathering as we collect pledges. If, like me, because we're traveling, you aren't able to come, appreciate you mailing it in or going online, either way. In November, we plan to work very closely with the Finance Committee as we build our 2024 budget. and it's our goal to pass this budget at the December 2023 vestry meeting. Lastly, based on additional donations from our community and the approved quarterly payments made through the budget, through September 30th, we have paid $14,000 towards reducing our line of credit debt. So our current balance is $64,055. So we've made progress on that goal also. Thank you for your support. Jim.
I have a tendency to wander, so Catherine has already warned me on that, so I'll stay near the mic so you all can hear me. Our buildings, grounds, and management team, led by Peter Holtz, and accomplished many tasks this spring and summer. Peter is here, Pat is here. Will you two stand? Just briefly, so we know, if you don't know. David Schaefer and Bob Pedersen are the other two on that committee. So, Dave, oh there, David didn't see us, sorry. Stand up, David. Nobody else, thank you. So here's a list of some of the things these guys accomplished this year. We routed the drain line from the manhole cover in the top of the parking lot to the bottom, replaced the basement windows, sealed the cracks in the basement walls, installed a new injector pit and drain line in the basement. All that means that the Boy Scouts don't have the swimming classes in the basement every time it rains anymore. So, we have aluminum rakes on our 10 outside peaks. We have painted the woodwork, 3 new benches, the courtyard, water heaters, fixed windows in the Marion houses, the Sexton's apartment, new gutters, air conditioner. You get the idea. They did a lot of stuff here. Chapel leak roof earlier in the spring, things like that. Again, many thanks for your efforts there. Most of these items were completed outside the operating budget. I attribute this to community outreach calls that were completed last spring, the increase in communications and frequency and transparency, such as town hall meetings like this. Many responded in kind with generous donations, and that's helped us quite a bit, and it helps us not to lean on the operating budget to complete the capital task. The BGMT is also working on the parking lot. We received many bids on that parking lot. We are working with the village to set up a meeting with the main users of our parking lot, which is the Park District, DYBA, School District, and Village. The village has offered to do core samples for us, but they're kind of dragging their feet a little bit. I think Dan told me that's the local government pace, so that's it. But we are working to address our parking lot by, we're gonna have a presentation made, and we'll address all those users, and we'll let you know what comes up with that. The day that this first Saturday that we had after the pumpkins arrived, we had confirmation class. They all had to park in the Marion House parking lot because there were 100 and some cars parked in here for Little League games and things like that. So we have pictures of that. Casey has done all that. Finally, I think the vestry wants to thank you all for your support. The attendance has been great. We're actually ahead of last year's attendance. We also want to thank all the people on the Alder Guild, buildings and grounds, pastoral care visitors, lay ministers, altar boys and girls, readers, greeters, anybody else that I've missed on all those committees, finance committees and things like that. It's just been a very good and strong feeling to see everybody on Sunday. So thank you very much.
I want to reiterate my thanks also to Jim and Susan, the vestry, finance committee, building and grounds. These prior two sections lay the foundation, and it's the, not always the most exciting work, but it provides the opportunity for us to do ministry, which is the fun part of church, right? So that's what we're going to transition to next. Go ahead and flip to page 2 in your packet. Just wanted to review with you the timeline of the visioning process that we have been in. Thank you to everyone who participated in the workshop several weeks ago now, both online and in person. Lori Lee is crunching that data and is ready to present that data to the vestry tomorrow. What we're in the phase of doing right now, you can see we are in October, is the vestry receiving the results of that work from Lori Lee, both this month and next month, and then starting to make the plans of what to do with that data and how to start building back the ministries and visioning for what future great things are in store for this place. So you're not going to hear anything for the next couple months, but come the new year in January, expect there to be another big parish gathering where we unveil lots of great things that we're going to be undertaking in 2024 and beyond. While also aligning that with passing a budget and with children and family ministries, which segues into page 3 of your packet. I think we're already missing Shelley's absence. This past Thursday, I met with, there were about 18 of us in total on Thursday, met with the parents and some of the youth to just get a feel of where people are, what people most value, and what people most need in the children, youth, and family ministries here at St. Gregory's. First, I want to say that Suzanne Francis, Suzanne, want to stand up, please? Suzanne Francis has agreed to chair a new family ministries commission, which will be the point group undertaking this work in partnership with me and the wardens. At that meeting this past Thursday, we did some data gathering, very unscientific but meaningful, I think, where I want to tell you some of the things I heard about what people most value here. The families of young children in this community really value that it is a community that values children. Lots of churches say that they want young people and then don't do anything to make that happen and make it very inhospitable for children to be actually in the space with them. St. Gregory's is not that kind of place. And the parents and the children feel that and know that. So I think that's an enormous place to be starting from. They also value intergenerational events, community events, where children and people of all ages get together as a whole village, let's say. And those opportunities for everyone to take a part in raising up the next generation of young people. A third thing I heard them valuing is the visible leadership of children in worship, taking part in that they are fully members of our community, and you can see that they're not half members, they're not half Christians, they are fully already part of the body of Christ. Some of the needs I heard, flexibility, number one, being able for children and parents to be able to plug in when they can because their lives are full, and not to feel shamed when they do show up to church is priority. To feel that they are always welcome when they can come to fully participate. Heard a lot about community service, a lot of need for getting kids to give back to others, to see that others are in need, and to do concrete things to help others. Being with one another socially, even without any explicit religious education going on, but just to be together, connecting with other kids and connecting with other kids across faith backgrounds, connecting with our Jewish neighbors, connecting with our other Christian churches. And then finally, whatever education program we end up building here, that needs to be about creating religious curiosity and not just indoctrinating children, not just telling them this is what you need to think and believe, but rather living the questions, learning the stories, being equipped with the symbols that will enable them to carry on a lifelong relationship with God. I think we also settled on an unofficial mission statement for family ministries here at St. Gregory's, which is that our goal is to make sure that kids actually want to come back to church when they're adults. How about that? How about that for a goal, right? Yes. So on the sheet in front of you is a very broad vision timeline of how we're going to build these ministries. First is establishing a Family Ministries Commission. We are just about recruited everyone we need for it. We've got a lot of yeses, so we'll be revealing those names soon. And then this winter, that commission gets to work identifying what are the programs that this church really needs in order to fulfill its mission. And then, after figuring out what programs are needed, what are the things we want to do, then turning to the question of staffing. What is the proper staff support that we need in order to successfully carry out those missions? And then, depending on what the answer is to that staffing question, looking to our Better Together partners to see if there is some overlap where we might be able to do a joint hire, perhaps. And then finally, the constant process of evaluating, are we succeeding all along the way? And always being ready to take a step back and retool and say, you know what, that didn't work. Fine, we learned something. Let's try something else. And then this spring, to start making concrete choices about curricula and formats, to recruit and train teachers and other leaders we need in order to make these programs successful. This will only be successful, folks, if there is broad and deep support from just about everybody in one way or another for these ministries. So when we come back and make specific asks about how you can support family ministries here, please come back with a generous answer of yes, or not that, but maybe this. And then finally, if and when we decide what staff to hire to start that search process and make those hires in the summer and into the fall, and hopefully with a full-fledged program ready to go in fall of 2024, which is not to say that there's not going to be any programming before then. We're going to hopefully try out some pilot programs, do some things as we can. You know, we're sailing the ship as we build it, right? We know that saying. And we're kind of doing that. So we're going to, we don't want to abandon the kids that we've got now while we're trying to build a really excellent program. Whew. That's enough, right? Cool. Any questions about the money, about the building, about the stuff I talked about? Maybe wardens want to come up too, so you can field questions in your area. If you do have a question, raise your hand and Catherine will come around to you with a mic so we can hear you and folks on Zoom can hear you.
Steve. Nancy said I don't need a microphone. I don't know if that's a compliment or what. Great update. I think you guys are on mark with everything you're doing. I think Father Dan is wonderful. That was one of the best sermons today I've heard in a long time. So great work, everybody. But I'm confused by one thing. The Faith in Action funds, it's my perception, and perception is reality, that those funds were restricted. Were we misinformed about that? What changed? That's my question.
So I'll gladly speak to that. So even Jim and I were a little confused. And it took a little bit for us to sort of sift through things. We have a big picture faith and action fund. Some of those funds are restricted for specific things, and we have them aligned with accounts that state specific things, music or other kinds of things. We received a large gift a couple of years ago from a donor family. They talked with Ann about it. They filled out the donor form, and there were not restrictions. And without a priest in charge or somebody interim, I took the role of being the person who got more in depth into all of that financial stuff, which we try to keep very confidential. And I reached out to the donor family and had a conversation to confirm that, in fact, what they intended was ministry, and the answer to that was yes. So then we had some vestry conversation. It was just under $200,000. So it was a nice big gift. And Anne had actually earmarked it upon receipt for the base of the capital campaign for the gathering place. And we discussed at our annual meeting earlier this year that the gathering place, I think I used the phrase DOA, because we really never had the community full support, nor a clear plan, or an idea what we're going to do to finance it. So could that be something we resurrect in the future? Potentially, but it is not something that we need to do right now. And so the vestry made a determination to use that money to hire a priest in charge. And standardly, an interim or a priest in charge role is about 12 months. We felt we needed 18 months to really transition us and get us to where we need to be. We were a little ahead with some of the discernment we've been doing as a community. And so the vestry allocated that money to afford Dan's contract. Does that help? Okay.
Any other questions?
Suzanne?
It's not so much a question, it's something I wanted to read that was on the Deerfield Moms Group, if we're wondering what we're doing is making any difference. Went to my first concert. Sorry, I'm really touched by this.
Oh. Went to my first concert, Disney, in the pumpkin patch at St. G's today, and it was so good and free. The Scouts had a bake sale with reasonably priced treats there. I don't know what next week's theme is, but the singer/pianist that is performing next week did a fantastic Poor Unfortunate Souls today.
Suzanne, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think that's important to get feedback real time about the impact we're making in the community. So thank you. Ed has a question.
I just want to say I think it's great that that 100% of our proceeds from the pumpkin patch go to the food pantry, and I really like the ideas that when we do the activities like that, that's where the visibility is. So I was really comfortable with the Faith in Action funds kind of being redirected, because let's make our Faith in Action funds out there with the community, and that 100% proceeds makes a big difference. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
We have one question online, and I'm not sure if this was something that was covered. Mention was made this last year of us needing to repay a donation made by the Lilly Foundation for a sabbatical.
Oh, yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah, they just wanted to know what happened to the repayment.
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
So just context, Anne Jolly had applied for a Lilly Foundation grant to cover her sabbatical. And in her contract, after 6.5 years, I think that was the number, or 7 years, she was allowed to take a sabbatical. And it was for a several week or a couple months period, I can't remember. And so in order to help us with funding, she had prepared a document and made a proposal about the work that she was going to do. And some of the money from the Lilly Foundation was going to support her, but was also going to support us with supply priests and those kinds of things. Upon her election as Bishop of the Diocese of Ohio, we were no longer going to pursue that avenue, so we were required to refund the money. So Nancy and I worked together, we connected with the Lilly Foundation, and we did transfer that money back. There was a question from Jim Mitchell.
Hi, Jim Mitchell. As you prepare your budget, please consider documenting all the volunteer hours that go into making St. Gregory's a strong parish, because documenting those hours is important, because without those hours, a lot of stuff can't happen. And I think people need to know how many hours by category, or however you want to break it out, are volunteered. And there's then an opportunity to get more volunteer hours.
Good idea.
Thank you, good idea.
We had one more question online. They want to know, and we kind of covered this earlier, what is the problem with posting monthly financial summaries? How are we going about doing that? How are we making that actually happen
Yeah,
more.
so we do post in person on the bulletin board. So that's done once the vestry approves. So for instance, last Monday was a finance committee meeting. The finance committee will review the preliminary financials and provide some feedback to Nancy. The wardens participate in that. And then Nancy goes back and makes any changes if applicable. And then at the vestry meeting, those financials are approved. And then after those financials are approved, they are posted in the building. The controversy has been a little bit about what kind of electronic version, where on our website could we post things, and there's been an awful lot of concern brought up about hacking and other kinds of things, and how much do we want to share. You certainly, as a parishioner, can call Nancy or Donna or Jim or I or Dan, and we can get you a copy of the document, but we're really pretty careful about the posting. However, that's why, and the other thing is the financials can be complicated for somebody who's not really a detailed financial person. Some of them are 4 pages, and it's hard to find the things that you're looking for, and even though Nancy does a great job of notations, it still can be confusing. So that's why we're coming up with a dashboard or a snapshot, which is a 1 page, so you can see at any point in time, and intent is to be monthly, and it'll be a roll-up that says this is where we are and this is where we're trending. And that absolutely will be posted, and we'll talk about how else we provide that. So hopefully that answers the question. Anna? You need to be so people online can hear you, need to be on the mic.
Is this, but I'm wondering if we have a goal set for our campaign, or stewardship campaign.
You can take that.
We keep going back and forth about this, and we decided not to post a goal, but rather to lean into just kind of get a sense of where people are, what people are able to give at this point, and build a budget from there. Now, Susan just told us we have a $57,000 deficit that we're working with this year's budget. I feel comfortable in saying that no matter how we allocate things, the budget we have now is near what it takes to operate this parish at the level it needs to be operating at to be effective. But we haven't posted a goal, is a simple answer to your question. If you want to talk more about your gift and how you can be helpful, please do reach out to me or the wardens, and we're happy to have that conversation with you. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, last year, first of all, we have a history in the recent 7 years or so with little to no campaigns where we ask for money. And in the community conversations, I heard that in spades, that people wanted a campaign, they wanted to understand their situation. And so even though we threw something together very late at the end of 22, frankly, the number of pledges was at best disappointing. And that's part of the community conversations, right? 122 people in the directory, 87 phone calls, 73 said they're active, and 46 pledges. It's really hard to build a budget, to Art's comments in his opening statements today, when you really don't know what people's commitments are going to be. And so we decided that we couldn't assign a goal. We needed to see how people felt about stepping in to sail on the ship with us and to make those commitments based on what they know. And so our goal has been to be transparent in where we are and to talk to you about where we're headed and what we're doing. And we're going to have a big reveal in January. We may say some things between now and the end of the year if we get things done faster than we thought. And we're going to do it together. We're going to build our future together. And we're going to work with what resources we have. I don't think people need to be lectured on inflation and financial markets or any of those other kinds of things. I think each of you have to go into your hearts and determine what your covenant with God is and how that's reflected in your financial giving. And we don't want to spend the whole year constantly asking. This is the time you need to make your commitments, and we'll work accordingly. If you have a windfall, your boat comes in, well, please include us. Go ahead, sure.
So when we first did our first town hall meeting in the middle of February, I think we're in here and about 6 or 7 of these lights worked. We have done a myriad of things, and by reaching out to all of you and all of you supporting us, and we had some generous gifts, like I said, we were able to do things outside the operating budget and not tax that. So our goal financially is to have the pledging cover the operations of the church, and so whatever that takes. But we have a lot of things that have happened during the course of the year through generous gifts to take care of a lot of things that needed to be taken care of in the building.
We had one question online that kind of covers in with this. How does this all fit together with the capital campaign that we had talked about earlier this year that John Dutcher was leading?
Yeah, you could talk about it.
It's hard to run 2 giving campaigns at the same time simultaneously. So we're doing the stewardship campaign now. The capital campaign will come a little bit later.
Yeah, but I'll just say something else about capital campaigns. Capital campaigns require a lot of planning and almost always require hiring an outside consultant in order to do some work in terms of figuring out how much you can reasonably expect it to raise, and then setting priorities and coming up with the most effective projects. So that's why a capital campaign should not be launched just like, oh, well, we need the money, let's just go. We want to be more careful about that and plan that out more carefully. You have to do a facility study, that sort of thing. Yeah, Art.
I was going to respond just slightly differently to your question, but so everything costs more today. So, in the spirit of keeping things simple, there's not a goal, but we can definitely use more from everybody. So the simple answer is more, and what you're comfortable with and what you can contribute, I think is important. But keeping things in perspective of what's gone on in the last few years, everything is more expensive. So, if you can give 5, 10, 15% more, that'd be awesome, right? But we are, I think, generally asking for more than what you're tithing or pledging today, if you can. It's up to everybody. I think one of the more important things is the pledge itself, right? Getting that out there so that we can plan for it, because this way we understand how to deal with the investment piece of the financials, and how we put that money to work for us, or what do we need to do, and it'll help guide with some of the investments that's coming out of the visioning process and youth ministry. So short answer is we could use more than what we have today. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Art. One other statement about capital. So when we were looking at things in the early part of this year, we knew we had a lot of building things that had to be completed. And so we've been talking about a capital plan. We knew we have a parking lot and lots of things. Well, things have changed. We had some gifts from some generous donors that enabled us to do some building things outside the budget, as Jim talked about. And we had an epiphany with a nice group of parishioners that are on the BGMT, talking about, who uses our parking lot? Oh, maybe those people who use the parking lot should be contributing and helping with the repair of the parking lot. And so while it might take us a while to kind of get that done, the fact that Jim has orchestrated with that team a plan, that means we don't have to raise all that money ourselves. And so we stepped back and said, to Dan's point, let's take a look at where we're headed, and let's be really intentional before we make more asks in those big buckets. Anybody else online?
You can swarm us if you want.
Well, thank you all. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for your ongoing generosity to this place.